Hey everyone, James Niggemeyer here. Thank you for tuning back into my YouTube channel. It's been a while since I've done a two bait Tuesday, and so that's what I'm gonna do today. Talk about two baits that I feel like are relevant for this time of the year. Before I get into it, if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button. And if you like the content, please give me a thumbs up and drop a comment down below. I'd sure appreciate it. Love to hear from you and get your feedback on what you think about the baits I'm gonna share with you today. So, we have had a really cool September here in East Texas, and things have really been mild and even cooler than normal. So it's been great. Oh, I've loved it because a lot of times in September we, can have some warm temperatures all the way through, and that could be said for most parts of the country, but it's been nice, it's been cool, the evenings have been cooler, and I want to say in the last 2 weeks the water temperatures dropped from the mid 80s or somewhere in the 80s to the high 70s. And I'm noticing just a tremendous amount of bait fish activity wherever I go. And I usually see that in the end of August or middle part of August, but there's more and more and more of that beginning to show up. And that's what leads me to these two baits. Because again, we're at the end of September and we're moving into October. And when it comes to October, really the fall time of year, it's truly hard to beat a square bill crankbait. I hope that you guys aren't thinking that when I'm doing a bait suggestion that it's always a square bill or a top water, because that's just simply not true. But I'm trying to give you some baits that I feel like will work in a broad range of conditions all around the country within this time frame. And a square bill is a tremendous one, whether you're fishing a highland reservoir or a lowland or rivers, what have you. The square bill is just great because there's just so much bait fish up in that, say less than 5 to 7 feet of water. So a 1.5 or a 2.5, generally I go with a 1.5 and a 1.0 because you'll see some small bait up there, some little bitty bait, and that 1.0 mimics those really well, and the 1.5 is just a great all-around size. This one is Chartreuse Shad, and this Chartreuse Shad has kind of a translucent body. And so that works really well for some of your more clear waters. And then when it comes to dirtier waters, I'm gonna go with a Chartreuse Blackback or a Catawachi Special is what this one's called. Kevin Van Dam won the Bassmaster Classic out of the New Orleans on that particular color. Great color for any time I'm working with a more heavily stained watercolor. Square bill's great in the creeks, creek channels, backs of pockets, those places where you're gonna find bait fish corralled up, bait fish moving in there, feeding on that plankton up in that shallow water. Also around boat docks, marinas, the edges of vegetation growth. If it begins to kind of taper out, you might see some shad running around the sides of those. But your pockets, your creeks, again, deflection is key. Make sure you run it into stuff as much as you can. And if you run it into weeds, just kind of jerk it out of there. And a lot of times it'll come free. And when it does, it's that erratic action, get some strikes as well. I would be doing you guys a disservice if I didn't talk about the square bill crankbait in fall for cranking around stumps and lay down logs. Stumps and lay down logs are a tremendous place for bass to set up an ambush as pods of bait move through the area. So definitely give the square bill a couple of ricochets off stumps and the root veins and root balls that come off of them, but also those lay down logs that, extend from say maybe 6 inches of water out to 3 or 4 feet of water, and then run it into those limbs. Just really bang it into those limbs. It'll ricochet. Make sure that you've got a lure retriever because you're gonna get hung up. If you're fishing it right and you're really hitting it, that's what's gonna happen. So definitely the square bill. Moving on. My next choice was kind of a toss-up between a spinnerbait and this. And I feel like, man, it's just such a hard one to beat because I feel like it's used more in a wider variety of conditions. And that's a bladed jig. This is a Strike King Thunder Cricket, and white is just really good, or a white or a shad pattern, those types of things. And some places you might go with a chartreuse and white combination, but just your white with maybe a Strike King Swimmin' Shiner or Swimmin' Caffeine Shad, which is what I have on the back here, and maybe even the blade minnow, which the blade minnow has a minnow type body with a fin tail And sometimes just that erratic, more subtle action in your clear waters works really well. But the bladed jig, the Strike King Thunder Cricket bladed jig in a 3/8 in the shallower waters, generally a half ounce is great anywhere, because if you want to fish it in shallow water, you can lift your rod tip up and get it to go over cover, even in really shallow water. And then it's just more versatile, because then if you want to drop your rod tip and let it go down a little bit deeper, if you feel like you're over deeper water, or if the fish are, you know, relating a little deeper in the water column, you drop your rod tip, slow your reel, and that half ounce will get down there a little bit more. And then they've even got, Strike King's even got a 5/8, which is this one here. But your shad patterns, and I think I have an alewife colored Strike King Swim and Shiner on the back. But those are the baits that I would say, and fish them in a lot of the same areas that I talked about with the square bill. So just get out there and look for the bait fish, run it around the grass, run it around the wood, run it around the docks, and places where you can see bait on your electronics or visually. Another key would be the heron. If you see heron or egrets up there along the water's edge, diving birds like cormorants and other things like that will also show you that there's presence of bait in the area. Now, if I'm going to give you just kind of a throw in, a bonus one, I feel like it's important to have, but I'm trying to stay true to the Two Bait Tuesday, but you've got to have something that you can pitch around, because there's sometimes they don't want to chase, and a soft plastic can really be a great one to have on the deck as well. This is a Strike King Rage Bug on a 5/16 ounce Strike King Tour Grade Tungsten and an Owner 5/0 Jungle Flipping Hook. And I've got that rigged with 20-pound test fluorocarbon and a little bobber stop so that I can go through the cover. And this is going to be great anytime you have a little bit like a lay down or a stump row or the edge of some grass, maybe on the edge of a lily pad field. Sometimes those bass just don't want to come out and chase. And by the way, that Thunder Cricket or bladed jig is great for the edges of the lily pads. Some little narrow chutes where there's some open water, you can throw that Thunder Cricket up there and kind of fish it around the lily pads as well. So some type of creature bait. This is a Strike King Rage Bug. Another good one would be a Strike King Game Hog. And just your typical colors, your green pumpkin in your clear water to stained water, and then maybe your black and blue or watermelon red with a chartreuse tail dipped in your more heavily stained water, or on overcast days or darker days. So those are some baits that you definitely want to give a shot this time of year, last week of September, moving into the first part of October. That's your Two Bait Tuesday. Hope you guys like this selection. Let me know if you guys have some success with it. Hope to hear from you guys with a comment down below. And until next time, thanks for watching and good fishing.